Hello students, very good morning to you all. Am I audible? Govind, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
How about the screen?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay, fine, thank you. Hello guys, very good morning to you all, and I welcome you to this online session on Python application programming. I hope I am audible and the slides are shared.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we had a lot of discussions in our previous classes. In fact, we had tried to create small programs to do or perform some specific task, and we also tried to understand the importance of functions. Okay, and we also tried to study the different aspects of data structures in previous module: list, strings, tuples, dictionary. And in the later part of your module 3, we also learned regular expression, which is a very powerful toolbox for searching, finding, extracting a pattern or a string, a required string from the huge amount of text data. And yeah, of course, it is mostly applicable in natural language processing. Okay, so these are the things that we had discussed in our previous classes. And in today, in a very last class, we have discussed about, we have introduced classes and objects, functions and methods in brief. I just try to explain in general what is there, what are the contents inside this particular module in general by taking up a small application. Okay, and also we had come across the syllabus. Again, I'd like to specify here the syllabus, whatever mentioned in VTU, mentioned by VTU, is very limited, but the situation or the requirement is totally different. Here in our syllabus, we try to understand this class and objects by creating the classes and creating an instances with respect to some small examples like rectangles, where max to max will be having 4 or 5 attributes, okay, 4 or 5 variables, and we try to study the properties of objects just by saying I want to create a rectangle, I want to modify its width, I want to modify its height, I want to locate the center of the rectangle. How do you locate a center of the rectangle? Just divide width by 2, height by 2, so you'll get a center of the rectangle, location of the particular center in the rectangle. I'm talking about geometrical shape rectangle here. Okay, so you are going to define a small program by your own by taking an example or a case with respect to a rectangle, and we will see classes and functions also. One second, just try to. So most of the times, we try to study some concept, assuming some small amount of what to say, the requirement, correct? But when it comes to the real time situation, things will become very difficult. Okay, things would become very difficult, where the data will get multiplied, the data will have more and more complex structure, there will be high relativity between the data and the data structures as well, correct? So there will be high relativity, high dependency between the different types of data and data structures. So we study only rectangle here, and we'll also discuss about the relation between classes and functions. We'll see like what do you mean by pure functions, what do you mean by modifiers, what do you mean by prototyping, planning, and so on. Again, here you could see time here. Time is just an example or in use case here we are going to consider to study pure functions, modifiers, prototyping, and planning. Again, classes and methods. We will try to discuss more on methods because methods and functions are almost similar. When you try to define your own function, I guess you're quite familiar with this function, properties of function, how to create a function. We use a keyword called def and a constructor called def space function name followed by the input arguments, okay, parameters, colon, and then body of the function will have several statements or expressions. So if a function is defined in a class, it becomes a method. So it's not much difference here. A slight variation if you try to create a function outside, just the way you created your functions. Function to add two numbers, function to create, function to find area of a circle, function to find whether it's a prime or not, function to find whether a number is an odd or even. So these were the functions which you have defined earlier, and there was no class associated with that function. That was a user defined function. Now if you try to group together several such functions, okay, and put it inside a class, you call it as a method. Okay, or you try to define a function inside a class, you call it as a method. And we'll also see init and str methods and operator overloading, and the other uh, concepts like polymorphism, the other aspects in terms of interface and implementation in the at the last as the last topics of this module. Pretty simple, but again I would like to stress, be very careful while studying this particular module. This is definitely not like your previous modules. It is way ahead and very much required at the industry level. And again, I would say this is very, very basics. You could say 1 or 2% of what you will do in industry in future with related to object oriented programming concepts. A lot of things defined based on these fundamentals. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Okay, so I've introduced to the concept called object oriented programming to my class in 6th semester B section for previously. So for them it might be repetitive. For the newcomers, like for other section students, understand what do you mean by OOPS. OOPS is nothing but object oriented programming. Most of the things dealt in Python, not most, all the things dealt in Python are related to objects. If I say A is equal to 2, I could say A is an instance or A is an object of type integer. Correct? A is an object of type integer. Why? Because I have assigned a value called 2 to A. So A is an object, but we used to say variables. Right? Now I'm going to change the notion of that word from variable to object. And you might have come across different types of classes, like you had a small library package called math, you had a package called sklearn, you had a package called a string. You have imported string in the previous module, import string, then you have used make, translate, and all those things. All those things are a class. Inside class you have methods. Say you have imported math, and now you say math.py. See, dot notation used to fetch the particular method inside a class, correct? So you say math.py. What do you mean by math.py? Math is a class, and inside math you have a method called py. Whereas I can have my own function of py if you have created it outside the class. Why did you create py as an object, as a function or a method of a class? Why? Because pi, square root, logarithmic, all these things are clustered, are similar, which tells it is a group of methods which is combined as a mathematical operator or mathematical functions. So what I would do, I would group all those functions and call it as math. So if I want to get square root, I'll say math.square root. If I want to fetch pi, I would say math.py. So this dot notations I'm going to use in order to get the methods which were grouped or clustered into as a class, correct? So here I could say you can understand the behavior of an object. I'm trying to group the similar objects here. You could see I will class is defined as grouping up of similar activities or similar objects. Okay. So just I took an example of a person. Person will have a feature and a behavior, right? Features are nothing but a data or an attributes like a name, gender, and age. Behavior is nothing but a function, correct? Behavior is nothing but a function. What a person can do, a person can talk, a person can cast a vote, a person can walk, a person can stand, a person can do or perform some particular specific activity. So I call an object in terms of attributes, that is features or data, and behavior or a functions or a methods, correct? So simply Imagine what is an object. Object is nothing but it consists of attributes in terms of data and functions in terms of behavior in terms of function or methods. Okay. So we shall try to take up our own example, which is given in our syllabus, so that we can try to get more information. Let me just stop sharing the slide and switch to the Jupyter notebook. Guys, maybe around 10:15 or 10:10 or 10:15 or so, I would be allowing you to attend keynote address or keynote speech by an international speaker who have been invited on an international conference. I'll be sharing the Teams link, okay, on the chat window here in this meeting only. You can directly join there, okay, and attend for 15 to 20 minutes of my class. You can attend there, okay, rather than instead of other class. You just try to spare 10:15 to 10:45, okay, at the or till the completion of your keynote at 10 o'clock. Till then we shall continue with this. Is the my classwork visible? Module 4 Jupyter notebook.
No, sir.
No, sir.
It's visible now, sir.
Okay. Okay. So far again, it's just a repetition of few things. At this particular point, you know how to use functions. So what basically functions do? Again, I tell functions are used to organize the codes. Correct? It will organize the codes. And what will built-in types will do? Okay, the data, built-in data types, already existing built-in types will try to organize the data. Correct? Organize the data. Let me just try to rearrange these things, right? Because we had studied the objects, which has got both the types, both the concepts. Okay, here I try to organize the data in the built-in types. Built-in types organizes the data. Here I could say features of a person. I'm just trying to create an analogy, right? And I would say functions are nothing but a behavior with respect to the slide which was speaking. Okay. So now if I want to create, what is the class then? If I want to create my own class, class is nothing but it organizes both the data as well as, okay, it organizes both the data as well as the codes. Correct? So now I can create my own built-in types. Python, I can create my own programmer defined types in several ways. So what class will do? It will try to group similar objects. What do you mean by objects? Objects consists of both built-in types, so not built-in types, in fact it would be programmer defined types now. Programmer defined types plus methods or functions. You can say functions. So this would be my class. So I'll tell you what you mean by built-in type and the other examples. Guys, if I try to assign a is equal to 2. So what is type A? Can anybody tell what is type A?
Integer.
So it's an integer class, correct. So it belongs to integer. If I say 2.5, it says float. If I say a string, so all these things are built-in types, correct, which organizes the data. So this is my built-in type which organizes the data. And this is the data of string. Whereas if I create a function, how do you create a function? You create a function by df and say my function add, and then you say a comma b, you'll give it as an input argument, and then say z is equal to a plus b, and then say print. Can you see this function now? Is it a function?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So this is a user my own defined function which adds two variables or two numbers, and it will print the value. Did I organize the codes here? Though I have written only one expressions, but I can have several such statements here, right? So I'm just trying to have several such statements. Did I try to organize the codes with respect to function? And this is my built-in types data. In this, so this belongs to a class called string, and this is my own function. And if I run this to program, and I can call the function something like this, what is the solution is equal to my underscore add. I'm calling a function and I'll pass two input parameters as some values, and I'll say print solution. So this is how I call the function, right? Sorry, I should not print because I have not written any value. So that is why you're getting, see here, what was the problem? The problem was I just said print SOL, since it is not returning any values. If you say return Z, so that makes sense now. It will not be, it will not be a none, right? It will not be a none type because you'll be getting a return value. This is a fruitful function. Why? Because it is returning some value. Whereas the function will print, I've used print statement here, and it will print the 7, which is the sum of 2 plus 5, 2 and 5, and SOL. This is a fruitful function where I'm going to use the returned values. Functions which returns the value, call it as fruitful functions. Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, you can just say if you have used the print statement inside the function, it's quite fine. I can always print the statement. I've said return Z, so that's why it's been overlapped. I can delete it, or I'll just suppress, and you can say only one value now. So it all depends, like what is that you're trying to fetch from the function. So basically what I did, I tried to organize the data using built-in types and organize the codes by using my own user-defined function. But what is an object? An object is nothing but creating an instances. So let us just try to create our own defined types to organize both code and data. This is called class. So what is class now? In this entire module, the class is associated with all the discussions. So class is a programmer defined type. Okay, it is completely my own programmer defined types to organize both code and data. Okay, so how to create a class, how to create a programmer defined types. Suppose we'll take an example of creating a point. If I want to create a class or a programmer defined point type called point, can I say point is defined using two variables, x and y, correct? X and y. Suppose, what do you mean by a point having an x and y values as 0 comma 0? Where it is located? Can I say in an axis, xy axis? If I say point x and y are 0 comma 0, what do you mean by that? Points are located at, guys, it's a simple math geometry. Points are located at where?
Origin.
So they are located at the origin, correct? So how are you going to create there are several ways we can represent the point. So what I can do, I can say x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0. This is one way. Am I correct? This is one way. Or I could store the coordinates as elements in a list or a tuple. So this is one way of representing a point. Or I can say z is equal to inside a list. So this is a list with points 0 comma 0. So this is a list of tuple. And also I can create a new type, my own type. You can run this program, or and I can say x comma y is equal to 0 comma 0. This is also same. Okay. Now I could say what is the type of z? Type of z is a list. Type of z is a list. And what are these elements? This is nothing but a tuple. Correct. So type of z. So I can create a list of points. I can also have another tuple with 1 comma 2. Okay. So again, it is a list of tuple where each element represent a point, or I can assign x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0. I can also assign x is equal to 1, y is equal to 2. It all depends. So how to create a point? Point can be created in several ways. Right? But how to create my own user defined point? So we could also create a new type, my own type, user defined type. How? A programmer defined type I can create using a class. A class definition look like this. So I'll be using a keyword called class. Understand? Keyword called class and my own class name point. Correct? Class point colon. So this is how I'm going to define my own user defined type, class space class name. And this is case sensitive. Class point colon, give an indentation. At the basic level, I'll be using this document string. I'll be using this document string to represent what is the class. So the header of this class indicates that this is the new class called point. The body is a document string that tells or explains what the class is for. Here the class is for what? So the class represents a point in a two-dimensional space. So let me just run this and see what happens if I say point here. If I simply say point, if I call a point, it says it's a main object, correct? It's a main object of point. So it defines a class name point. Okay. Suppose if I say blank is equal to point. Okay. So the class object is like there are so many objects inside this class. Say it is just like a 6th B class or 6th A class or 6th semester class. There are so many students. I could refer those students as object. Class 6th semester, right? So I would say class space 6th sem colon. And now what is that I am trying to say? The class refers to a factory of creating objects. You can create objects. Okay. So many objects can be created. So to create a point, you just need to say, you call a point and you just assign it to some variable. I've just called a class and I've assigned it to some variable. Now what is blank? I just want to see what is blank. You could say now blank, this return a value which refer to a point object which we have assigned to blank. And I can also call this process as instantiation. What? Instantiation. This process. What I mean by instantiation? Instantiation is nothing but creating an instance of class. And here what is blank? Blank is an object. Correct? Blank is an object. Remember, object contains what? In future, data as well as functions, which is analogous to feature and behavior of person. Guys, remember that slide. Data and function, feature and behavior of person. This is an analogous. This is just an analogy to understand what is data. Data is a feature. Function is a behavior of person. So these two entities will be included in the object. And what is an object? Object is referred to the creating an instance of a class. Creating an instance is called as instantiation. Simple. I can also say blank, blank 1, blank 2, blank 3, blank 4, blank 5, blank 10,000. I can create n number of instances from this class. Okay. And obviously, I can create so many objects, right? So if I say instances, it is nothing but object. Instance and object, both, right? Both are regularly adjustable, or it can be used interchangeably. Sometimes I say object, sometimes I say instance, all are same. So it's one and the same, not to worry. I can have a number of instances. So I created a class called point. Okay, class space point. This is how I use a constructor or Python syntax. And this is just a comment or a doc string which says like what does this class belong to. Next, further. Since I've said data, here I mentioned data, I can assign a data. You can assign values to an instance using dot notation. Now I have a prior knowledge like this class called point will have two attributes or two values. Now we shall study about attributes, how to assign the data. Attributes can be created. You can assign values to an instance using dot notation. Now blank is referred to a class or an object of a class. So I can say blank dot x. Guys understand, blank dot x is equal to 3.0. Blank dot y is equal to 2.0. So what did I do? So I've assigned two attributes, assigned values to two attributes x and y. And now why blank dot x? Because blank is an object. If you simply say x and y, yes, those are variables, and yes, those doesn't belong to what? A class or an object called blank. It was simply a variables x and y. This is normal way of representing x and y. Correct? So these are just the objects, or these are just an object of type integer. It's already been defined by your Python libraries. But this is my blank.x value or an attribute which is defined by me. And .x is a variable or an attribute. .y is a second attribute which belongs to the object called blank. And blank is an instance of class point. Understand? This is how I read. This is how I read. Correct? Blank is an instance of class point. Blank dot x is an attribute of object blank. Correct? And similarly blank dot y. Similarly blank dot y. Okay, so let me just put this in comment. Okay, now I'll run this program. It will not disturb much. So attribute is nothing but, now I am using the term called attributes, which emphasizes on a class, which emphasizes on an object. So the variable blank refers to a point object which contains two attributes. It may have a number of attributes also. No worry. No worries at all. Why? Because we are trying to deal or try to understand the problem or concept of attributes. We have taken class as a point. I've taken point as an example. So the point will max to max will have only two values or two attributes. So I've write only two attributes. You can see what is blank dot y. You can say blank dot y or print blank dot y. It's 2.0, that is a floating point value. Blank dot x, it's 3, right? So the expression blank dot x means go to the object blank and which refers to and get the value of x. That's it. You can also use this dot notation as part of any expressions. Guys, you can also use this dot notations like this. So this is an expression. There's just a print expression where I've used percentile G and percentile G, and this will fetch the value of blank dot x. Blank dot x is nothing but the value of blank dot x is 3.0 since it's a floating point value. Blank dot y is 2.0, and I can use this as a part of expression and run this. We'll get a tuple. Okay, and also I can say I can use it as a part of a mathematical expression also, not only print. Here you can see distance is equal to math dot square root of blank dot x square plus blank dot y square. So this is a Euclidean distance base. No, not an Euclidean distance. This is just a distance measure between 2 points. Okay, x square plus y square, and say distance. I'm just giving you a couple of examples where I could use this. What happened? Math is not defined. Yeah, see, I have to import math then use it. Correct? I have to import math and then use it because I am trying to address math is a class. Inside math, I am going to use a method called dot square root. So for this, I am going to give an input arguments as blank dot x, which is an attribute. See, blank dot x is an attribute of an object blank. Blank is an instance of a class point. I'm going to use this blank dot x. It can be an input argument also. So I can use instances and attributes with any expressions. Correct? And also you can use it as an instance to pass as an argument to a function. See here. I could also say define print underscore point is a user defined function, and p, guys, understand what is p here? P is an alias. Wait, let me tell you. It will be an alias here. So here I say print underscore point. This is how we'll call the function, right? Yes or no? This is how you call the function, print underscore point.
Yes, sir.
So instead of p, I would give blank. Correct? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
So what is blank? Blank is an alias of p here. Okay? Blank will be an alias to p. What is p dot x then? P dot x is nothing but blank dot x. P dot y, blank dot y. What is blank dot x and blank dot y? Blank dot x and blank dot y are nothing but 3 and 2. So I can pass this as an instance. See, the entire instance can be passed to the function also. It's one and the same. I can create another object. Instead of saying blank, I will say blank 2 or blank, okay fine, blank 2 is equal to point. Okay, and now I say blank 2 is equal to 56. Blank 2 dot x is equal to 56, and blank 2 dot y is equal to 74, something like this. And now I say what should I say? Print underscore point blank 2. I hope you're following this. See, did I create any functions now? No, because blank 2 was again another instance of that class. This is another instance. As I've said, you can have multiple such instances. It's just like user is trying to give more and more data to ask something from the database or to ask something from the function or an application. Guys, have you just referred to your Gmail? Have you just logged into while logging into your Gmail? Everybody has got Gmail accounts, right? Everybody have got username, password. So the username and password which is appearing on your application is an instance of the Gmail application or Gmail class. Here in my window, if I try to enter my own username and password, so there I am giving the data like username and my password. Those are the data which has been given by user, and those instances, there can be 100 such instances, 100 such users. Instance is nothing but object. So likewise, make sure I can have multiple instances. I can have multiple instances, but giving the attributes, you should know for what purpose I am using. And I can also pass the instance as an input argument to the user defined function. Okay, whereas blank 2 or the input argument parameter will be an alias to an object, and object will may have multiple attributes with some values. Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So in the next class, we will be discussing about rectangles. Okay, so I would definitely not make you people miss this opportunity of attending to the keynote session of an international personality. Make use of it. So just I am posting a link on the comment section. Has the link been posted?
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, don't relax, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity during your engineering days, definitely. Okay, so just log into this Teams immediately. You may exit my class, go to this Teams, be there for half an hour, listen to his keynote session. Maybe you may get some inputs related to the real concepts of engineering. Okay, thank you for attending this session. Take care, stay here, stay safe, and happy weekend. But I would be expecting your presence in the Teams on the keynote session. Thank you.